I just want to preface this with I have a lot of information to cover. I'm going to try to keep it at a pretty high level. So some of the things that I'm going to be talking about, I may oversimplify, just to get the point across of what cyber risk is, how the human factor is involved, and hopefully give you a little bit more information about what you guys can do to protect your businesses and yourselves. So what is cyber risk? I know if you look at the news, if you turn on the TV, you're bombarded with this type of thing. And if you use technology, the reality is that you are exposed to cyber risk. For example, if you use mobile banking, you do it to save time, avoid the hassle of going to the bank, but you accept risk by doing that. You balance the risk versus the convenience. Similarly at work, a lot of us will share documents, email things back and forth to each other. It's really convenient, but again, just by doing that, you accept some risk. Now, what makes cyber risk unique and different than other risks? We take risks every day. I mean, driving to work, we take risks. Drinking other tap water, we take risks. You can go on and on. What makes cyber risk different is it's very new. A lot of the technologies that we use are unproven, or maybe they haven't had security built in, or we haven't been exposed to the risk related to the cybersecurity. And then when we go online or we turn on the news, we see all sorts of different things, from things like Edward Snowden to celebrities saving pictures in the cloud and having somebody hack into that and steal them, to the Target, the Home Depot. So this ranges everything from personal risks all the way to the legal aspects if you're a business. So that's scary. We're constantly scared about cybersecurity and the risks that we take. So what can we do about it? Unfortunately, and I'm sure you'll hear this at many of the cybersecurity speaker series that you go to, there's no silver bullet. We can't stand up here and say, do this and you will be totally separated from cyber risk. It just doesn't work that way. But a good place to start is with what we know. In cybersecurity, there's an attack continuum. And we won't really get into what that is, but there's different aspects of what happens when an attack occurs. So the best place to start for a business or you as an individual is with what we know. So in the known world of cybersecurity, the defenders and the attackers are essentially playing in the same game or the same field. Attackers try to break the rules, exploit known vulnerabilities in software and hardware to try to gain access. Defenders have the very difficult task of trying to stay one step ahead. They try to patch the known vulnerabilities and detect and prevent the breaches. They block attacks based on known signatures, IP addresses, websites, and so on. So even though the known world of cybersecurity is a bit more manageable for a trained cybersecurity defender, it's still an extreme challenge for them because there is a tremendous room for error. Defenders, and I'm sure you've heard this before, defenders have to be successful 100% of the time. Attackers, they only need to succeed once, 100 times, 1,000 times, or however many times it takes for them to succeed and exploit that known vulnerability. The playing field in the known world of cybersecurity is the typical devices and defenses and things that you probably have heard of. And it really starts up here with what's considered your local area network or the things that you control. And this is where you'll implement things like firewalls, intrusion detection systems, intrusion prevention systems. They block known things from coming out. They watch things from coming in. They watch things that are good that you want to keep in your network. They watch those going out to see where they're going. The professionals are actually able to monitor network traffic to see what's normal and what's not normal to pinpoint issues. They use network segmentation to segment things that need to be separated. For example, Target, they had their payment systems connected to a system that an external vendor could use, and a bad guy exploited that. So segmentation really does go a long way. Antivirus, everybody's familiar with antivirus software. Access control lists that deny access to certain things, they exist on the hardware. Spam blockers, policies, and it goes on and on. These are the types of things that the defenders and the network folks can implement in their network. Then we look down here at mobile devices. They're an extension of your network. Even though they may be used outside of the network, they still connect. And again, the acceptable use policies are used to defend. Bring your own device policies. I'm sure many of you have heard about those. Secure passwords, remote wipe capabilities, and it goes on and on. The security the defenders try to implement continues to grow as the threat increases. The other thing you have is your external-facing public resources. These are things that exist outside of your network because you want people to access something, whether it's a website or you have a vendor that needs to log in to pay bills or access some payment information. Those have to be segmented so they're not existing in your network so somebody can't exploit that. Going even further, you have external networks. Whether you have something in the cloud or let's say you're a company that manufactures something. You send plans or you send designs to a manufacturer. That's an extension of your network because they have your proprietary information. So as you can see, even though the defenders know, okay, this is a bad thing, we need to block it, the footprint that they have to defend is just tremendous. In its most simple terms, cybersecurity is about protecting sensitive and valuable information that you, as either an individual or a business, store and transfer electronically. The game is simple, but again, even when we know what we're protecting and defending against, the sheer volume of technology and communications, some of which incorporates security as an afterthought, leaves a tremendous amount of room for error. While it's not possible to eliminate cyber risk, the combination of the right technology, well-trained technical staff, and also a cyber-aware workforce, which is key, and we're kind of going to focus on that today, that can go a long way in reducing your cyber risk. But unfortunately, cybersecurity does not start and end with what we know. So in addition to those known things that we kind of talked about, we also need to be aware of the unknown. So what is the unknown? So this includes sophisticated, advanced, persistent threats. In the known world of cybersecurity, you have the good guys and the bad guys that are playing on relatively the same field. Bad guys don't always play by the rules, but there are some known boundaries that defenders can use to stay one step ahead of the game. In the unknown world of cybersecurity, there really are no rules, and the game that you're playing is consistently changing. For example, but again, going back to Mandiant, they find that 100% of their clients that are attacked by one of these more advanced or sophisticated type of attackers, 100% of them have antivirus, up-to-date antivirus software on their systems. It does nothing against the more advanced or sophisticated attacker. Similarly, traditional cybersecurity defense devices or technologies don't work against that. Their goal is really to steal credentials, get into your network, and look like a user that's supposed to be there. So a zero-day attack, this is what defenders have to try to defend or mitigate. Essentially what it is it's an attack on an unknown, unpublished vulnerability that gives the defender 0 days to respond. It hits, and there's nothing they can do except learn and try to mitigate the damage. The best that they can do is identify something that's happened, identify a zero-day attack, and try to react as quickly as possible, catch it as early as possible so it doesn't do as much damage as it could. Obviously, that's a hard thing to do. The kill chain that Lockheed Martin developed, it kind of goes through the steps that these more advanced, persistent, or sophisticated attackers go through. So what the defenders try to do is block or recognize the attack as early as possible. If they get up here and you know that somebody's poking around, you can try to stop it early. If they get down here and act on their objectives, it's far too late. And this is kind of the more consistent thing that you'll see with these rather than stopping it up here. So it's a scary thing and it's difficult to do. And the other thing that we need to be aware of, and this is another critical component, is the human factor. Even more unknown than probably the advanced sophisticated attackers are what the human users are going to do. It's really, really hard to know what somebody's going to do with that piece of technology that you give them because just by human nature, we're unpredictable. So in many instances, the human user, the person with the device, whether it's on the network or outside the network, they're the weak point. That's the person or the place that the attacker is going to start with. So again, the best way for them to exceed is by gaining access, which that user has. So what I've got up here are kind of two just examples. So I was putting the presentation together, and I saw this picture, which was just a stock picture. This is an example of a serious fail by a user. So the scenario that I thought of when I saw this was somebody at a coffee shop. They've got here on the bottom their book of passwords. they've got their mobile phone sitting there, and they've got their computer sitting next to it. So they run to the bathroom or go run to meet somebody. Somebody could own that network, steal all of their personal information just by leaving all of their devices sitting out there on a table, which is not uncommon. Or perhaps maybe they pack up or have to run, they leave their phone on the table and they don't password protect it. That person has access to everything on their personal life and possibly their professional life. So it's these types of things that more aware a user is, the less likely it is for them to happen. And then over here, I've got an example of a phishing email. Good morning, Jane. Here's the new expense report template. Please use this going forward. Okay, Steve is my CFO. This is a typical email I receive. But in this case, it's not. It's an attachment, looks normal. Jane opens it, doesn't work. She says, the spreadsheet doesn't work. All right, I'll just go about doing my normal business. In that instance, it would, install malware, give the bad guy access, start that process in the kill chain that we talked about. And what you can do here is you can really educate users to see what a good email looks like. In all likelihood, there would be tell signs that the user could go and look at and say, yeah, this isn't a normal email I would receive. If I just thought about it one more step further, there's ways to defend against it and not open that attachment. So these are just two different examples of kind of the human factor and how unpredictable that it can be. Up here, I've got a few characteristics of the unknown world. And even though most of the time the advanced persistent threat attack, the end goal is really directed at a government organization, a business. It oftentimes starts with an individual, a lot of times on their personal devices or accounts. So it's important for both sides to really be protected and educated. And then with the proliferation of these advanced and sophisticated adversaries, it's nearly impossible in this part of cybersecurity to act preemptively. So what happened yesterday really has no bearing on what's going to happen tomorrow or today. So the one piece that I do want to read because I think it's important is the second bullet there. And in this aspect of cybersecurity, or this part of the attack continuum, the adversary is sophisticated and strategic in their actions. First of all, they know how your security tools work. They know who works for you. And they know what access those people have. So they know who to target. They also know how you think the technology that you have is supposed to work. And they know all of this, and they design their attacks to go around that or to exploit that so that they're disguised and you can't identify them easily. So as you can see, this in contrast to the known threats that succeed by exploiting known vulnerabilities and operate by consistently attacking your perimeter and the devices, they have to succeed when your defenses are down. In this area, your defenses can be up, you can be doing everything correctly, and they can still succeed. So it is a scary world that we live in, but the good thing is there are ways that you can reduce your risk and reduce the exposure to the unknown cybersecurity threats. I've kind of been on more of the doom and gloom side of things. There's lots of scary things in cybersecurity. That's just the nature of where we are. But the good news is, and I don't think we often talk about this enough, is that there are strategies that you can employ to reduce your risk, defend against the known, and also the unknown threats. In the current threat landscape, both the known threats and the unknown threats, the individual non-technical user a lot of times is at the focal point. So that's a key point in the defense, and we often overlook that. Therefore, a better trained non-technical staff really does go a long way in becoming a cyber asset. They can really essentially be the first line of defense for your organization if you don't look at them as a dumb user and you instead look at them as maybe a liability or an asset that you can train and you can really bolster. And it's not as expensive as a lot of the really advanced types of technologies. On the other side, a well-trained technical staff is extremely important. A great way to reduce risk is to have technicians, folks that are operating your devices, that not only know how that piece of equipment works and know how to push a button, but what's behind it. How can they improve it? What other technology do they need? So that well-trained technical staff is really important as well. Finally, or next, technology solutions. We all hear a lot about technology solutions, but they are extremely important. You can implement a lot of devices today, a lot of new technology, a lot of which, we're lucky, is actually being developed right here in Maryland that you can start to implement in your own organization to reduce a lot of these risks. The challenge with all of this is there's no one-size-fits-all approach. You as a business can't pick a solution and say, this is what I'll do, and I can replicate it across everything. Same as you as an individual. Organizations and individuals first need to know what they're protecting, know kind of what their threats are. And then for individuals, they need to know when they're adopting new technology, start to think about security. Don't just adopt a new piece of technology because it's cool. Think about, hey, am I secure? Should I be doing this? What am I balancing? So here at the Cyber Center, that's what we're focusing on. We're trying to develop training and solutions to help organizations know what type of technology to implement, have staff that know how to operate that technology, and then also the people on the front line that are trained, are cyber aware, that aren't seen as just a liability or a user that's just going to make a mistake. We try to help organizations see that they are an asset.